Welcome, everybody. I'm thrilled to be back joining the crew at Book Interrupted. I'm thrilled to be joining for our book number 4, the book of the season, with our theme of women. I feel like the choice I made was such a narrow focus for the author who's a woman, the main characters are women, and the title is The Women. So we're doing The Women by Kristin Hannah. And it's, for some of you who maybe haven't read it, The Women is a novel that centers around the lives of 3 women, mainly one. And their paths all intersect in different ways. And it's all set through the backdrop of the Vietnam War, which was really cool because I didn't know that much about it before reading this. And then also its aftermath. So it explores different themes of like friendship and loss and sort of the strength of the bond of women. So welcome everybody. And I'm excited to kick this off and start talking about this book because it had lots of complexities and loved parts, didn't love parts. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it.
Great.
Who wants to?
Well, I'll start. So I know that I'll say, like, for me, I felt like the real main character was Frankie, or right? I think that was her name.
Yeah,
Frankie.
Frankie.
Yeah, and she really reminded me of a character. I don't know if any of you have watched The Vampire Diaries, but the main character in that show, her name is Elena. So I did really like the book. I like books about war and stuff, and even though that wasn't the focus of it, I still kind of enjoy that. But I felt like the men fell right away in love with Frankie, and that really reminded me of Elena Gilbert, because in the show, a guy will see her and it's like, oh my God, I'm in love. I've never been so in love with someone and I have to have her. And so that was actually one of the things I didn't super love about the book. But yeah, so that was just something that, like, she really reminded me of another character, just because of that kind of trope where people are falling in love with her without really even knowing her.
She's that
Yeah, that's
charismatic.
true.
People just fall at her feet
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally, like main character syndrome, you know?
Yeah.
Main
Yeah.
characters.
You all feel the same way as well with Frankie and all her love interest throughout the novel?
I really liked the book. We just came from, well, last book I didn't love. This one I really liked. I thought it was I liked all her characters. I liked that men were falling in love with her, and that
Fair enough.
it was difficult to read at times. Obviously, this book was intense at times, but yeah, I kind of liked that that these powerful men, and that also, like, I mean, I was really mad about the relationship. I forget their names now because
Rye.
Yeah, right.
Rye. Wait,
Rye.
that's the second guy, not the first guy.
Jamie.
Jamie. So
Jamie
with
was
the
the
second
first one.
guy, Rye, and what
Rye.
happens, I don't know if I want to put the spoiler alert, but anyways, with him, that was very frustrating. And you could tell, like, she was naive. Like, she was, she should have been smarter, like, obviously, but she was also young, and we've all made stupid mistakes.
Really
like
young.
that.
She was like 18
Yeah.
when she went, right? 18?
Yeah, I think
Like,
so.
that's
Yeah, but by the end she was
Oh, that's so
27.
young.
No. So, but when she first went off to Vietnam,
How old
yeah.
was she at the end? 27?
27 apparently,
That's
yeah.
still very
it's
young,
almost
but
a
she'd
decade of her
she'd
life.
aged
Sure.
so long, like so much in such a short period of time. And she was so sheltered too before she went, in her life, like that she was she had very little real life experience, which is why she was maybe very easily bamboozled by somebody who flattered her heart rather than, but wanted her more of as a trophy than anything, or yeah.
I mean, we've all done it. Like,
We've all done it.
We've all been there, like stuff like that, where you're like,
420, yeah.
yeah,
Right?
like
Yeah.
we didn't all make the best choices, and I feel like she grew. And by the end of the book, I think it's awesome. Like Virginia said, that they all, it's about that power of women and strength, and how she gives back to the community at the end. And I just think the beauty of the book was not the relationships with the men, I guess, is the point of what I'm thinking.
True.
The beauty of the book was her relationships with the women and the strength that she had and, you know, how difficult things were, and then how she grew and learned and then gave it back to the people who are also struggling with PTSD. So.
I like did not see that part coming. I thought that she was going to find her power when she came back and tried to be a nurse in civilized in the civilized like nursing profession, rather than the military one. I thought that when she went through all that stuff that she was going to find her power by going to medical school and becoming a doctor. I thought she was going
Me
to go
too.
and become a surgeon. And so when that didn't happen, I was like, oh, and in a way, I was like, oh, why didn't Frankie do that? But then I also liked that it wasn't so predictable, because you're like, well, you know, it would be easy just to be like, well, she should just go to medical school. She wasn't really in the right frame of mind to kind of take that on either, because she, you know, helping people through their PTSD was maybe, you know, maybe she could still go to medical school at 27 now, but like I don't know if she would have succeeded through it, because you can't just be in surgery and then have a flashback and, you know, like start doing stuff that maybe you want to do if you're not in a war zone or whatever, right? So I totally thought she's gonna become a doctor. Like I wanted that for her. I was like, you're so capable. It made her character very I think very real as well, because like that wasn't where she went. She kind of, you know, her journey found her in a way, like her healing journey.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I didn't necessarily think she was going to go to medical school, but I thought she would come back. And you remember when she was in the OR and she saved that kid's life by doing a trach?
Yeah.
But then she ended up getting fired for it. So that's where it kind of went off the
Yes.
rails for me, because I thought, okay, so now they're going to realize her capability as a nurse, right? And also sort of get that recognition that she deserves for being a nurse. And then, you know, that didn't happen. So, like, I don't know. For me, I found that part, and then she, like, the fact that she kept getting like knocked down and kicked in the teeth with, like, you know, addiction, and then what happened with Rye, which actually I didn't see coming. Like, I thought that maybe she would end up with him, you know, like, so yes, he, you know, betrayed her
Yeah.
for sure. But then I kind of thought, okay, well, they're going to have, because it's like, seems like her true love. And he genuinely, I read that he was genuinely in love with her as well, like while they were in the war. But I felt like she just kept getting knocked down so many times. I felt like I wish the author
Yeah.
had made maybe less times that she kept getting knocked down. Cause I'm like, again, you know, like, and the stuff with her parents and stuff. And I know at the end it came through, and I think she ended up, I like the way it ended, that she was helping other women with PTSD. So I thought that was really cool. But I think that maybe like 2 or 3 of those knockdowns probably could have been eliminated, you know, by Kristin Hannah if I were to give her notes for this book.
But yeah,
I don't
like I think
know.
I agree with you. I think she just like every turn, like she even tried after she lost the baby to go get help, right? Was it after the baby? And they were
Yeah.
just like, she went to the circle, and they were just like, you're a woman,
You don't belong here.
so
You don't
you
belong
don't belong
anywhere.
here. And she's like nobody wants to help her. Like it was like even when she got like kicked when she was already down. She just kept on getting kicked when she was already down. Like it was just like, oh, when is she gonna get a break?
Yeah.
Like,
For everything she's been through, right? Like she deserves.
yeah.
I think
Oh,
that's
go ahead, Sarah.
realistic. I think it's
Yeah, I
realistic.
think it's realistic.
Yeah, totally.
I think a
That's-
lot
The
of
fact that she
veterans-
triumphed in the end is maybe the like she triumphed in the end in a way where she got to a place
Yeah.
where she was better, and maybe that even I don't know the statistics, but maybe statistically that wasn't even that realistic. I'm just saying that like in the end she did triumph, so there was hope in the end, whereas it could have gone kind of the other way, and I'm sure it did for many people.
If it wasn't for her friends, I don't think she would have.
What
Yeah.
good
True.
friendships too,
that's-
eh?
That's how I felt too. It was like, I feel like, and maybe this is more relatable to people who have been in the military and stuff, but I thought it was a really good representation of like how people who come back from war or the military, like they do really struggle, and they struggle finding their community again because of the things that they've gone through. And like it really showed, I felt like, how like she was getting knocked down so many times, but like it felt really nice at the end, where like I felt like it came together nicely, where it's like I I have my women, and I'm helping other people with PTSD. Like it, in the sense of, like, it felt like a feel good for me. Like the change felt like a feel good for me in the sense that, like, it felt like revenge. This one was a feel good where it felt like you can heal. Women, can heal through these crazy and really emotional hard times. Yeah, so I felt like it was a feel good, like I just need me and my girls.
I have a question for you guys because this is what I felt. I felt that the beginning was in Vietnam was way too long, and then the end when she's in Montana, I felt like but the whole book wasn't rushed. If the Montana thing wasn't, I felt like the Montana part was super duper rushed through. Like, I wanted to know more. Like, I've been waiting for the whole book for her to finally have her healing and her peace. And it was just like a few chapters where, like, it was like 300 pages or something like that, 250 pages of just Vietnam. It was just like I wanted more at the end if the beginning was so long. Like I feel like she could have cut down the Vietnam part a bit. Like I feel like it didn't need to be as long at that part. I feel like if they cut that part down and she made the end part longer, I would have felt a little bit. I liked the ending. It was very satisfying. I just wanted more of it. Like I've been waiting for it. And it was just like, well, let's wrap it up. Everything worked out for her. The end. And it was like, what? No, tell me like more details. You gave me details about everything else. Why don't I have these details?
For me, like the book was more about like living through the war. And so like the end where like she got to the end and she was going to survive in the end, because like for her that whole period was survival, was like getting to be able to go to war and being in the war and then coming back and dealing with the repercussions of like the PTSD and all the stuff she saw there. And so that for me, like when it was like and things were done, it was okay for me that I didn't have all the details, just the fact that she made it. So I think it's interesting because uh I think the amount of time spent on the war was very interesting, because I don't know that much about the Vietnam War either, and
Me
I think she
neither.
was trying to bring to
Mhm.
light the thing that people don't know, especially about women in war, in that war, because of them coming back, it means being like you're not there. And so I think it was important that they laid out kind of all this details so that when people told her you don't belong here, you weren't in the war, even us as readers can be outraged that happened. I don't know.
Yeah, I think on many times in my head, I'm like, that's such a crock of bullshit. When they're like, women weren't in,
Yes.
they were, unless you were in actual combat, you didn't matter. But so that must be so frustrating. And when I was doing like a little bit of like, research and looking up of, to prepare for today, I was reading that Kristin Hannah did a lot of research on the Vietnam War. So it is really historically accurate. So I think that's really great because I didn't know that much about it. And, I'm born in 74. So, I remember hearing about it and knowing that there was a lot of controversy around it, whether we should, whether the US should have been in it or not. So I was really pleased to get to know a little bit more about it and to understand a little bit more of where that came from as well and how frustrating it must have been, and like anger, like would make people so angry to come back and not be embraced as like a hero for their country, regardless of what the
Government
government.
policy, right?
Yeah.
Like the people are taking out their rage against the government on individuals, which I mean happens. It happens today. Like people booing at sporting events, which is weird. It's like the people at the sporting event aren't, making the policies in the states that people don't agree with or whatever. But same kind of, I guess people do that all the time.
Book interrupted. My interruption is I don't have one. I scheduled the whole day to sit in bed, read this book, and the only interruption I have is a snoring puppy who's being such a little baby. Oh my God, what a cutie. Okay, bye y'all.
Book interrupted.
But again, I really like reading about war. I think because I don't, obviously I haven't lived through it or anything, and it's such an important piece of history. war is. And so I personally really enjoyed how long it was, and to know that that she did a lot of research, that's great, because this might be people's first and only introduction to the Vietnam War outside of like maybe the little blurb they learned in school. So I liked it for that. And but based on that, what you were saying, Sarah, it also follows through with I feel like a lot of war stories where the main focus is what happened to them during the war, and then it's wrapped up very quickly at the end, type of thing. It's, like only a very small part of the story is what happens to them after.
I read a bunch of, after I recorded my book report, and then I read some reviews, and a lot of people, Sarah, are different than you, just so you know, that a lot of people were saying they wish it was more about the war and not about the end. But I also want to bring up one of the points in the reviews. There were some people that were saying that they felt like it was so centered on the American white savior kind of idea and didn't represent the Vietnamese people and Vietnam in general as a country respectfully. Because they really created the characters, any Vietnamese people, as just like these little bit parts that were stereotypes or different things, and then even describing the country was more about like the mold and like it was all kind of negative, like her bag is so moldy because she was in this monsoon, or that it was so damp there. Like everything was very more negative, and also because sentiment is that maybe the Americans shouldn't, well, not maybe, the Americans shouldn't have done that, and that there was a lot of atrocities that happened towards the Vietnamese people, that some people were very upset and angry about the lack of representation of real Vietnamese characters in the book. So what does everybody think about that?
Makes sense.
I agree.
But I agree that that maybe there definitely could have been more. I do think, I mean, I think that the way it was written, and some of when they did talk about the Vietnamese, and how what the Americans were doing, and some, like with the napalm. I'm trying to give specific examples, but like the napalm, there was that one really bad battle, in the end when she was on her second tour. They were talking about the Vietnamese, like, oh, the woman that was clutching her baby, So I do think there was some of it where I personally didn't get the sense that they didn't, that it was all done from like sort of that white American perspective. I did feel that it came through, for me anyway, from my opinion, it did come through, about the atrocities were happening to the Vietnamese, and the Vietnamese that had no part of the war, like the villagers, women, babies, children.
Orphanage. They mentioned
Yeah, the
bombing an
orphanage.
orphanage. You mentioned
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah.
it wasn't this exact same intensity from my perspective reading it. Like, it was, some of it was hard to read, like about the baby being burned to the mother. Like, honestly, that was a tough one to read, and I imagine that's what would have really happened, So yeah, that's my perspective anyway. But
Yeah, and it wasn't her viewpoint. I mean, Frankie's viewpoint, right? It was her story, so is what she saw. So,
And being a nurse, she probably spent less time in she only spent time in the war torn parts of Vietnam because she was at a war hospital, right?
Yeah, so I think it's hard for because it is her point, like Frankie's point of view. I think that would be hard for her to tell her viewpoint not from like an American view, like
a privileged American too, right?
Yeah,
like she came from
like
money as well, right?
And I think that if this was portrayed as a book that was historically accurate, and like just they advertised it differently, I think I would feel the same way about some of those reviews. But I do think that's a hard line to tether when it's supposed to be a certain person's point of view, because at the time, like, and again, she's so young, and back then, like, she may not have even realized, the internal race. Like, there's so many different things that I don't even know if she, like, Frankie the character, really even realized herself, kind of, with that type of viewpoint.
Yeah, and I mean, she came from a
Also,
war family who was very
Yeah.
like rah, you know, war people that go to war, or,
Have
soldiers or whatever, or
honors.
Navy. I think they were in the Navy, are heroes, and that's the noble thing to do. So that's her viewpoint as well.
So
I
my
also
grand
think that we would have to find out too, like, they could have developed a Vietnamese character, but you'd have to find out, like, historically, did the Americans actually interact with any Vietnamese other than when they went to these orphanages and stuff to help kids and stuff? If they were going to actually have a character that had some character development that was Vietnamese, like, we'd have, I wonder if it wasn't just historically accurate. Maybe they didn't really interact with Vietnamese people other than to help them. So that's an interesting.
That's a good point. It'd be interesting to find a book that is in the same time period from a main character that's Vietnamese on their point of view. I wonder if there's something out there. It'd be a nice compliment to read after reading this book. You know me, I like to read books in clusters. Like, this one's doing this, and they're all kind of about the same theme. And then you could get kind of more layered nuance about the whole historical period.
Yeah, I
I'll
imagine
have to
there's
look into that.
Yeah, I imagine there's lots of like maybe some books, some historical novels that are about that too. Like my grandfather was in the war, and he's Black, and they did not think he'd come home because typically people of color had all the missions that were riskier, right? Like almost some of those like suicide missions, and so nobody thought he'd come home, you know. So obviously he did, but it's. I think that there's a whole side of war, as that can be spoken from that point of view. From
Which
like
war was he in? Like the Second World War?
World War. Yeah, yeah.
All
Ooh, he plays for the RAF.
the
Yeah.
Canadian government has made like the military records public, and you can search for people from your family that were in the war and read all of their file. Like
How do you do that?
you can search for it. My great uncle died in the war, and I read through his personnel file, and it's got everything, his physicals and their comments about him, and he was a pilot, and like all the stuff they said about whether he was going to pass or if he was good or bad, or like what they thought. And yeah, it's interesting. And I don't know if it's just for people who have passed now or everyone. You'd think that if somebody was still alive, it would be questionable. But they're like military file out there. I'll have to find it.
Both
It was
my
very
grandparents were in the
interesting.
war.
It was very interesting because I didn't know very much, and like reading through this file, it was very interesting. Like he had gone, he had flown to do this mission, and because of the weather, he didn't have enough fuel to return, and his plane went down. And they don't know, like for a long time, they didn't know he was missing in action, and eventually they had to to close his file. They put that he was presumed dead, but like there was no found person, or his plane went down in enemy territory because it ran out of gas, essentially, because they didn't have enough on board to get home. And so it has like the letters that were sent to the family, and all that stuff. So anyway, I just mentioned it. It's an interesting like glimpse into history, because you hear the family, either you do or you don't hear the family stories. Sometimes people who have gone to war don't talk about it when they come back, or if a family member died, they don't want to talk about it, and so you don't really know all the details, especially if you're waiting years and years for maybe your word of your son, and that he never comes home or whatever, and so you don't know if they've been captured or whatever. So
That was my experience as well. Like when I met my grandfather in Trinidad, he did not want to talk about it. Like when I was asking questions about the war, and he didn't want to talk about it. So whatever I've heard has been through like other pieces in the family. But okay, I have a question for you guys about, I found it interesting, the relationship that Frankie had with her parents, like her mother and her father, and how it evolved throughout the whole course of the book. So I just want to get your perspective on that too, because it was interesting, right? About the dad not valuing her contributions in the war. But I thought her mother was really interesting as well, like how she started off being like really like shallow, and like all she cared about was
Image.
thank you. Yeah, image. And then how it sort of changed throughout the novel. So I wanted to get your perspective on that, because I thought that was, in aside from all of from the women's, like her friendships, I thought her parents were really interesting development as well. Did you feel that too? Like about like the parents, like and how the dad treated her and
I think after the stroke is when her mom kind of turned around. Like maybe because she could see Frankie's skills as a nurse versus like, I want my daughter to get married, maybe. Don't you think that's kind of where the turning point with the mom is? The turning point for the dad was way later, like when he thought she was killing herself. That's when it turned for him. I think, don't you think? But the mom, I think, is the stroke, and that she like nursed her back, you know? What do you
I
guys
found
think?
it interesting when the mom gave her the drugs. The what did they
Yes,
what did
and
they
her
Mother's
call
little
them?
helper.
Mother's little helper. The what are they in real life? They're or what's the real name? They're
Percocets.
Valium.
Percocet something, but I don't know, one of those.
Yeah.
Valium and
And
Percocet, like one
how
for up, one for
Yeah.
down, right?
yeah, and I wonder, how often that happened, that she's like, oh, just have these, this will make you feel better, you can get through the day. And you think that the mom probably did that,
As
to get
well.
through her day. And like, I would
Mhm.
imagine there were lots of other women. I think there were. I think I read that did that because, and that it's just, well, it's unfortunate that people, suffer from addiction, and that she went through that. But how you would feel as a mother, I think she was probably in denial that it was her it was her giving her daughter this thing that ended up
Just
being
numb your feelings and you'll be
yeah,
fine.
right.
This is like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It like revealed another part of history where it wasn't just like it wasn't just women who had PTSD from going to war and stuff like that were trying to deal with complicated feelings and not having any other option. Maybe they had other options, but like the easiest option, and what maybe pretty enough widespread enough that people could justify it, right? Be like, oh, just do this,
The
and it's
socially
easy.
accept- the
Socially
socially
acceptable.
acceptable
Thanks,
method
Sarah. My
was just take this
words
pill,
weren't coming.
right? Don't have your feelings.
Mhm.
Just let it go, forget it. Everyone kept on telling her, just put it
Mhm.
in the past, like just forget about it. And she's like, I'm trying, but I can't just forget, right? Like,
Stop feeling so much. You'll
yeah,
give yourself wrinkles.
stop feeling or talking. That's another thing. By the end of it, her parents were talking about stuff. And that's because she learned that if you hold things down, and she had so much trauma to hold down, you know what I mean? Like she couldn't possibly hold it all down, like miscarriages and Vietnam War and
so much
everything.
loss.
Manipulative,
So much loss.
manipulative men.
I
Yeah,
felt it
like
was
so
really
much.
accurate.
Her brother dying after she signed up for him to go with him, and then he dies before she even leaves. Like,
Mhm.
and that was her person. Like all of it. Like, oh, poor Frankie.
Yeah. I felt it was accurate, like the mom wanting to keep things like almost for show type, like and then the like just everyone telling her to also like forget about it, push your feelings down, etc. Like it really to me felt like that was so accurate for the time. And I don't think like it was frowned upon to talk about your feelings, your like the hardships that you're going through, your addiction, your complicated relationships. And so I felt like it was so frustrating to read, to hear people who are supposed to like love you tell you to kind of get over what's happening to you. But I think she helped break those barriers for her parents, like even though it did take a longer time, especially for her dad. I think she helped that, and that's kind of like what I saw was she's helping her parents to also to change in a more accepting and better way, because I'm sure the way that they grew up was even more strict type of thing. Like, you really don't talk about anything that's wrong, right? Like, you have a husband and a wife and a kid, and that's good and merry. So yeah, I felt like she was really trying, or maybe not on purpose trying to help her parents, but she did in the end show them that, like, the way that you guys were living was not sustainable or healthy when such traumatic things are happening.
Right, like her parents are giving advice like this is how I learned to deal with it, but she's learning something new, and the younger generation can teach the older generation different things. Like the assumption, like when we're kids, sometimes we assume that adults know everything, but they're just people. Like they're just trying to deal the way that they know, and sometimes that's not always the best way or the healthiest way.
Yeah, I really wanted for her though, you know, in the end when Henry was at her parents' house and he saw um, the dad's office and how he had that the wall of like the wall of heroes. I
Heroes
really wanted,
Wall.
I really wanted at that point for her dad to have put up her photo as
I
well,
know.
you know. And then when
Yeah, that would have been so sweet.
said, your wedding picture's going to be going up there. I was like, oh, for God's sakes.
I forgot about Henry. I forgot about him completely. I read this a while
I loved
back.
him.
I loved him too. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a good friend in the end too. But you know, he was like, well, she, you know, the lady he ends up with, he's like, she loves me, right? Like, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like he loved Frankie, but it's not. It's like he knew that she didn't. So, but he was willing to, you know, love her anyway. I don't know.
I think he also knew like she just wasn't like she needed help, and she just wasn't opening up that way. Like he could see it, right? And she just wasn't ready. So maybe
that's why I was, you know, really hoping for her and Rye to work out, that if it wasn't going to work out for Henry, who was this really good guy and genuinely loved her and didn't have some of the flaws that all the other men had, that I was hoping it would work out, you know, so that if it didn't work out with Henry, that she was really destined, you know, to be with Rye. But then, you know, that didn't happen either. So,
well, maybe at the end.
Okay, this is
with Jamie.
Sure.
Should I say the spoiler? Okay, this is a
spoiler.
big spoiler,
Say
but that's what made me be like, okay, this is I'm fine. When Jamie and her like get back together, I was like, okay, great.
I was waiting for him to come back ever since the rock, she puts this rock so he has it. I was like, he's coming back, and then it was going on and on and on. I was like, where the hell is Jamie? What about that rock?
He did die too. Of course, everything horrible happens to her. Of course, he died. He's not
right?
coming back.
I was like, at least the rock's gonna show up. Like, look at the thing, and then like right at the end.
I was secretly hoping that the person that came back wasn't Rye, but Finley. Because, you know, Finley, they never found, they just had someone else's boots. I was hoping that Finley was the one coming back. So I was disappointed when it was.
I think you're
Who
supposed
was
to
Finley?
be.
Who was
brother.
Finley? Oh, her
Brother.
Her brother.
Yeah, sorry.
But I think that's part of the pain that they're trying to show in war, is that some people, they don't come back and there's no body, and you never know.
I know.
If they were in a POW or not, or
well, because of our family history, I was secretly hoping, being like, I don't care if nothing else works out, as long as Finley comes out. Even at the memorial when she met Jamie, I was hoping Finley somehow would just end up showing up or something. I was really rooting for Finley, but he didn't come back.
That would have been a good twist too.
That would have made me cry, to be honest. If Finley came back at the end, I would have been sobbing in tears, because I really, when I was younger, me and my brother were so close, like inseparable. And so reading that, like, she lost her brother, like, of course, gut-wrenching, and putting yourself into that position. Again, if he came back at the end, wow. Waterworks would have been everywhere.
Me too.
I did cry at the end, so not because of that. I did cry at the end. Yeah, I found it so, like, her finding her place, and then being when she was at the memorial and looking at her brother's name and her parents being there, and yeah, I just found it very touching. I definitely, I rarely cry at the end of books, and Laird was sleeping beside me, my partner, and he I was like, but like trying not to sob out because he was sleeping, like finishing the book, and I'm like, don't.
He looks over and there's just like wet and it's all over the pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I cried a little bit when the parents were there and she didn't know they were coming.
Yeah.
And then the dad saying what he said, I was like, finally!
You guys are making me cry right now. Don't do it. Look at me, I'm like the tears are starting.
I still would have wanted Finley though. Jamie's
Yeah.
fine. He was great. Perfect. Made me feel good. But Finley would have been like, I would have been over the moon.
Newsflash, Sarah wants a happy ending. Every book.
Every
like,
book.
Who would have thought? Who
the
would have
happiest
thought?
ending.
Always.
She needs all the happiness to happen. It's like, oh, Finley came back and so was ruined and this person got a promotion and that person won the lottery. It's just like,
And everyone lived happily ever after.
Right. That's why I was like, the war part was too long. It was too horrible. Like, let's just a little bit. I needed enough to care and know about Vietnam. Like, I needed to know what she went through, but I felt like there was just like one thing after the other at Vietnam. It was just like, just anyway. And I would have been okay if the book was a super long book and the end was super long too. I would have been fine with that. But I guess, yeah, I'm always looking for the happy parts.
See, this is a market that is just like primed to be for somebody to like manipulate here. You take all these popular books and you write a spin-off that's just the happy ending. Right? You call this one just the happy ending. And then you have one that's just like just the vengeful ending or whatever. And you just have these books for people who want that or they want the twist, the unhappy ending. And then just see how it goes. I think you could do something. It would just have to be short and people would be like finally satisfied.
Just like one chapter of each, and that's how it ends.
There you go.
Totally. Like, I'll write little chapters of every book. I was like, actually, what happened?
Yes.
It would even have to be good. People would just be like, oh, thank goodness that happened. Like people like spin-offs. The zombie version.
Something other than the happy ending that I'm gonna get.
Yeah. If you pay me enough, why not?
I've been putting books down lately that just aren't, I feel that just aren't like uplifting enough, like where there's too much like sorrow and heartache or like abuse of children, you know, that kind of thing. Like I've been putting them.
You know what, actually, there's a thing. So I learned this when I took a screenwriting course that it was actually Shonda Rhimes, her screenwriting course. And she said that what studios are looking for, if like, for instance, right now there's a lot of war and horrible images we see in real life, that TV shows or movies about those things, those studios won't pick up because people won't watch them because they already lived them. They want something to escape. And when things are really happy and peaceful and doing well, those books about wars and stuff, people are more likely to pick up because they are not in it every day. So right now, because there's lots of turmoil in the world, people are more likely to gravitate to shows and movies and stuff that have happy endings or maybe a little bit uplifting, because they already have so much in real life on the news, constantly being bombarded with it, that they don't want it. So it's a thing, like Shonda Rhimes teaches in her course, you need to find out from the studios what's going on. I wouldn't have been able to sell Grey's Anatomy during a different time because it just
during
fit
COVID.
what they were looking for. Right,
during
exactly.
COVID.
Yeah. Exactly, because it
Totally.
fit during the time. Yeah.
And I watched Grey's Anatomy, and I had to like it was a struggle to watch that show because they were all wearing masks, and you're like, I don't want to be, I don't want to see.
It's too real.
Yeah, it's too real.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a thing.
I was gonna ask
That's
you,
interesting.
Virginia, if that was the reason why you seem to be gravitating towards maybe like more lighthearted, feel-good books, is because it's just thing after thing after disaster after bad news. Like it's all every day, right? It's to the point where sometimes it's not even shocking anymore. So yeah, I was gonna ask if maybe the state of the world right now, if that's guiding what you're reading.
Totally. It's exactly it.
Yeah.
For a while, like even during COVID, I picked up the Goldfinch, put it down, which I never do.
Yeah. What a good book, but it's heavy.
Yeah,
Right?
It's so
It's
much.
heavy. Yeah.
you know, I started reading My Dark Vanessa, but the professor was abusing her. No, thank you. You know, I had to put that down, even though, like, you know, I'm sure it's like great novels and complicated and great stories. Oh, Demon Copperhead. Have you guys started reading that? Have you
No,
read
what's it
that?
called?
But I want to. I have it. I have it on my to read
It's
list.
spectacular. But same thing, this poor kid has a terrible upbringing and
Oh,
is getting through it,
oh
you
no.
know, like again, just more things
Right.
like I can't do this. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it though, Ashley. It's just I feel like there's enough like life is hard enough, you know, like in the
Yeah,
news
totally.
or you know, I just want something a little I don't want like, you know, unicorns and puppies all the time, but just not like kids getting you know abused or like addiction you know like really awful human atrocities that you know think
Right.
that are
You're like,
real that are going
I'm
on.
already hearing about people losing their rights and kids in war zones. So like, do we need to
Yeah, kids in
think about
cages,
it?
like
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
opioid crisis,
Current.
right? Like we're already living through so much of this.
Yeah, let's get something. I think actually our next book, Mary, you said yours is funny, right? So we should
Okay,
do
it's
another.
funny
Is
and
that
there's some heavy bits. So it's like I got it. I chose it because I was like, I want something funny. And I read like the first chapter. I was like, that's hilarious. But as you read through it, there's some heavy bits in the book too. But like she's making fun of, you know, she's making light of a lot of like
Perfect.
mostly herself. But anyway, so we'll see. So there might be a little bit of this. But the nice thing about a funny book like that gets heavy later is if it's like you can go back to the funny bit and read the part about the bucket where if you go on our Book Interrupted website, you'll see me in a bucket, and that's based on a scene in the book where she gets stuck in a bucket. So
Oh, right on.
hilarious. Yeah.
And mine is
Okay.
not joyful. So
No, I know yours is
Nobody
gonna
getting
be,
stuck
I
in a
know.
bucket.
sorry.
So hopefully things turn
That's
around
okay.
before we get. Yeah,
What's yours? What's your book?
My book. Oh,
Hers
what's
is-
it called? Can't
I'll grab
remember.
it for you.
We rip the world apart.
Yeah, we ripped the world apart.
Well, that didn't sound like it was gonna be
Yeah.
Nice cover. I
a
No,
haven't
funny
bought it
one.
yet.
it is not.
Yeah.
I haven't read the whole thing, so I just started reading it, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not. It's going to be intense and I yeah. So just
Yeah.
be prepared
I'm
for
excited
We
for the
have-
next two books. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all the time we have. Any last thoughts?
I'll
that.
put it in my
Virginia, do
personal
you want to
journal.
end it up with something about your book?
Yeah, let's do that.
I would definitely recommend this book for sure, especially for you know the theme and around sisterhood and the importance of girlfriends in one's lives to
Mhm.
help you know keep you uplifted, also keep you grounded to like really keep it real like when you are struggling. I think that for me was the greatest part of this book is this character being surrounded by just really really great girlfriends that would well really like would have died for her. So
Yeah.
so that to me is the greatest part of the book. So how about you all?
For me too, the
I-
friendships. Like her girlfriends were the best.
They
I
saw
didn't care
her.
about the guys and stuff. Yeah, they always showed up. Always. They just arrived. And she was like, "Oh, I just want to burden them." And they're like, "No, you're not a no." Like I loved it. Yeah.
Yay, women.
I love war books, so I would recommend this to anyone who really likes war information. Also, I agree that like the friends having her back in a time where, especially after COVID, we really were so isolated, and I think people are struggling to find and have community. This I think really hones in of like how it doesn't even have to be your family, like it could be your chosen family, your friends, and that's how you heal, in my opinion. So yeah, I would recommend that.
Yeah,
All right,
I agree.
well
Yes.
yeah.
Yay, women.
Awesome.
Yay,
Woo!
friendships.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yay.
well,
Good
thanks,
choice.
it's been really fun, so thanks for
Yes.
If you've enjoyed these video highlights, listen to the full episode on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to like and subscribe and ring that bell to be notified when new episodes are published. Find out more by going to www.bookinterrupted.com.
Never forget, every child matters.